Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be covering the subject of collision in all of its different forms. So to begin with, we're going to label this as scenery, just to start with. Then we're going to set our grid snap to finer 1/32. And we're going to take a sphere and stamp it out. I might make it a red sphere. And set it on stamp shape. Clipped mirror. And that should do nicely. Then we're going to put a microchip on it. By the way, I advise if you make projectiles to always create a group first. I went ahead and did this without creating a group, but I always take like a paint fleck and group it and then add that. The reason why is because if you want to change the visuals, it's a lot easier to change them within a group. But we're not going to be doing that, so just forget about that. Unless you intend to make one yourself with visuals of some sort. I will turn off the luminoise and the color amount though, just to make it look as smooth as possible. Alright, so the first and most basic form of collision that we've got is the impact sensor, which is kind of self-explanatory, and it uses labels to detect impacts. So set it to scenery or all if you wish, but basically if it collides with something labeled scenery, it will have an effect. And we're going to get an impact sound from the MM sound effects. That is, if our internet can connect again. I think this thud will do nicely. Just expand the radius of the sound a bit. And the most basic one we have is bumps, but there's also touching, rolls, and scrapes. I don't think we'll be needing those. You can also change the sensitivity. I'm going to set it to maximum. It isn't always necessary. Oh, and mustn't forget to make our little ball movable. I might make it a little bouncy too. So there you have the most basic form of impact detection, the impact sensor. But I want to cover another form of impact detection, which is the trigger zone, set to detect a label. This one's probably something I wouldn't use because zones, they actually kind of, take up thermo more so than the impact sensor that we demonstrated earlier. However, they do have a few advantages. They're very precise, and they can actually have an impact radius outside of the object, so you can sort of create hitboxes larger than the object itself. So that's one of the advantages. Another advantage is with things that are not collidable, they're pretty good because the impact sensor only works with something that's collidable. So say if our ball has no collision whatsoever, but it still falls, it can collide with something. So that's one of the advantages. There's a few other things, but that's probably the foremost one. But again, I would only use this for very specific circumstances due to the fact that zones can load up your scene if you have too many. You can have quite a few. If you've played any of those city levels that I've made before, with the destructible environments, they have quite a few zones, so yeah, you could be somewhat frivolous, but you know, just to be efficient, I generally would avoid using trigger zones unless it's an emitted projectile, or ball, or whatever, or if it's going to be used multiple times over and over again. But there is one other form of impact detection. I guess technically there's a fourth, but we're going to cover the other one, the third one, which is the health manager method. Basically works like this. You put currently losing health into the sound effect, and then you loop. It doesn't have to be a sound effect, it could be anything that you want to trigger with this, by the way. And we'll take no health to reset the value. And then you just set this to impact. This is a health modifier. You will have to relabel the ball in order for this to work, though. Label it to object. Also, the ball must be collidable in order for this to work. But it's another method, you know, that you can use. And you can reverse the method. You could actually make the ball just change it to scenery. But you could make it so the ball, when it impacts with something, you know, and hurts it, it triggers the sound effect. Process is pretty easy. And there's one other method, but it's not too useful unless you use a lot of them. And that's the laser scope. The laser scope can detect, you know, labels of certain types, so it's pretty useful, I would say. Now, what the laser scope is bad at is detecting in all directions. It's really only good for one direction, so if you're firing a projectile like a bullet, I think this might work better, although the speed of the bullet might make it more difficult for this laser scope to work properly, because when things are flying very fast, it seems to cause the detectors to delay a little bit, so if you were making a bullet, you'd want it to have a longer hit detection radius. But yeah, if it's only falling in one direction, it works pretty good, so here's what that would be like. Notice how it doesn't work too much the other way. There might be certain advantages to this, though, if you wanted something to fall and then stop making noises when it rolls on its side. That's kind of useful. Or if you had something that only has one, you know, one position, like if it's constantly upright, if you have a gyroscope, maximum strength, maximum dampening. It could be pretty good for that, like say if you have a block puzzle or something and a block falls from the ceiling, or if you pick it up and move it and you want it to make a thud whenever you set it down. You know, this would keep it stable, so that's a pretty good method right there, alternatively. And that's pretty much all the different methods of collision that there are. Well, okay, there's one other one I remembered. The tag method. Just label it tag. I don't really like this method though, because it basically makes you have to create a ton of hitboxes. But basically, you just have a big zone that conforms to whatever object it is you're colliding with. It might have to be slightly higher, actually, because it has to detect the tag, which ideally should be at the center of the ball. I don't really think that method has any particular advantage, but I just thought I'd mention it in case, you know, sometimes people might think of things more interesting than I do, because different perspective yields different results. Someone might come up with something really nifty based off this principle. But anyway, that's all the different methods of collision, and I thought I'd mention them because I think, you know, the MM tutorials are fine, but I never found them very helpful to me in particular. I only watched one, and I got bored, so yeah, make of that what you will. They need to bring back Stephen Fry, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, leave a comment, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. If you would like to support us financially, consider clicking the join button to become a member and unlock perks. You can also leave a super thanks in the comments, which we would appreciate, or a one-time donation on Ko-fi, link in the description. That's all for now. Goodbye.